They called it the Aurora Project. Sounded beautiful, didn't it? Like some scientific endeavor studying the northern lights. That's what they told us recruits anyway. Fresh out of MIT with a shiny new degree in electrical engineering, I was idealistic, eager to contribute to something groundbreaking. Alaska in the dead of winter wasn't exactly my dream locale, but the classified nature of the work and the promise of revolutionary energy technology had me hooked. The journey was unusual. A series of unmarked plains, each leg taking us further into the desolate, snow-covered wilderness. No towns, no roads on the last stretch, just endless white under a bruised, gray sky. Finally, we landed on a makeshift airstrip carved into a frozen lake. The facility was a cluster of low, prefabricated buildings that looked temporary and utterly inadequate for the kind of advanced research we were supposedly undertaking. Then I saw it. Rising from the stark white landscape, a colossal, obsidian pyramid. It wasn't made of stone, the material was darker, smoother, almost like polished glass, yet it absorbed the light, making it seem to pulse with an inner darkness. It dwarfed the surrounding buildings, an impossible structure in the middle of nowhere. No explanation was offered. That's where the magic happens, from the grim-faced security personnel who escorted us. Inside, the contrast was stark. Gleaming corridors of brushed steel and humming machinery. Scientists in sterile lab coats bustled around consoles displaying complex energy readings. It felt like a high-tech research lab, albeit one buried in the Alaskan tundra. We were introduced to our teams, given our assignments, and sworn to secrecy with more legal jargon than I'd ever seen. My role was in the energy regulations sector. Vague, I know. It wasn't until my first ascent that I understood why. An elevator, far larger and faster than any I'd encountered, plunged us deep beneath the surface. The air grew heavy, charged with a strange, almost palpable energy. The hum intensified, resonating in my bones. The main chamber was breathtaking and terrifying. The base of the pyramid extended down into a cavern of unimaginable size. At its center, a swirling vortex of energy pulsed with a blinding blue light. Cables thicker than my torso snaked out from the pyramid's core, feeding this raw power into a network of conduits that disappeared into the depths of the earth. And then I saw them. They moved with a fluid grace that was unsettling. Tall, easily 7 feet, with lean, powerful builds. Their skin was a mosaic of greens and browns, scaled and dry. Their heads were elongated, with large, unblinking golden eyes that seemed to possess an ancient intelligence. Their hands had 3 long, clawed fingers. They looked like intelligent, bipedal lizards. The human scientists barely reacted to their presence. It was clear this was normal. We were introduced to them as the benefactors. We were told they were the ones who had provided the technology, the pyramid, the energy source. They were in charge. Our work was to monitor and regulate the flow of energy. The technology was beyond anything I could have conceived. It seemed to tap into some fundamental force of the universe, generating power on a scale that could solve the world's energy crisis 1,000 times over. But the how remained a mystery, guarded by the benefactors and a handful of high-ranking human officials who rarely showed their faces. Days turned into weeks, then months. A strange routine settled in. We worked in shifts, ate in a sterile mess hall, slept in cramped dormitories. Interaction with the outside world was non-existent. No internet, limited phone calls that were always monitored. We were effectively cut off. The benefactors mostly kept to themselves, observing us from elevated platforms or gliding silently through the chambers. They communicated in guttural clicks and hisses, which were somehow translated into English through devices worn by the human supervisors. Their expressions were inscrutable, their motives opaque. As time went on, the initial awe gave way to a gnawing unease. The secrecy, the isolation, the unsettling presence of the benefactors, it all started to feel wrong. Questions began to form in my mind, questions that no one seemed willing or able to answer. Where did they come from? What did they want? Why the elaborate charade of a research project? One night, during a late shift, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. A group of benefactors, accompanied by a few high-ranking human officials, descended into a lower level of the cavern, a section that was always heavily guarded and off-limits to regular personnel. The air around that area always thrummed with an even more intense energy. Curiosity, and a growing sense of dread, compelled me to investigate. Using my security clearance, I managed to access the surveillance feeds for that level. The grainy thermal images showed a large, circular chamber. In the center, bathed in an eerie green light, was something else. It was difficult to make out clearly, but it looked organic, pulsating, connected by thick, glowing conduits to the base of the pyramid. And then I saw the humans. Not working, not monitoring. They were being led submissively. Their movements were slow, almost trance-like. The benefactors moved among them, their clawed hands occasionally touching the humans, who would then shuffle in a different direction. It looked like herding. A cold dread washed over me. The revolutionary energy, the benefactors. It wasn't what we were told. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention. Small things, subtle interactions that had previously gone unnoticed, now screamed with a sinister meaning. The way the human supervisors deferred to the benefactors, their eyes often filled with a strange mixture of fear and reverence. The hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when lower-level personnel approached. The occasional disappearances of staff members, explained away as transfers. I started documenting everything, every oddity, every unsettling observation. I knew I had to get out, had to tell someone. But escape from that frozen fortress seemed impossible. Then came the incident. A power surge, unlike anything we had experienced before. The blue vortex in the main chamber flared violently, bathing the cavern in an intense light. Alarms blared. The benefactors moved with a frantic urgency, their guttural hisses echoing through the complex. The human staff panicked. In the chaos, I saw my opportunity. I knew the layout of the lower levels better than most. I slipped away from my station, moving towards the emergency exit I had secretly located weeks earlier. It was a long, disused ventilation shaft that, according to the original blueprints I'd managed to access, led to the surface a few kilometers away. The journey through the narrow, freezing shaft was a nightmare. The metal was cold against my skin, the air thick with dust and the lingering hum of the pyramid's energy. I could hear the distant sounds of the emergency response teams, the alien clicks and hisses. They would be looking for the cause of the surge, and anyone who wasn't where they were supposed to be. I finally reached the surface, emerging into the blinding white of a blizzard. The wind howled, tearing at my thin lab coat. The pyramid loomed in the distance, a dark, silent monolith against the swirling snow. I ran. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs ached, the image of the green-lit chamber and the trance-like humans seared into my mind. It took me days to reach civilization, half-frozen and delirious. When I finally stumbled into a small Alaskan town, babbling about a hidden pyramid and lizard-like aliens, I was dismissed as a madman. The authorities were surprisingly uninterested in my story. almost as if they were expecting it. Eventually, I was debriefed by men in dark suits who knew far too much about the Aurora Project. They told me I had experienced a psychotic break due to the stress of the remote environment. They offered me medication, a new identity, and a stern warning to never speak of what I had seen. But I can't forget. The memory of those golden eyes, the chilling hum of the pyramid, the sight of humans being led like cattle, it's all etched into my soul. I live a quiet life now, always looking over my shoulder, knowing that the truth is out there, buried beneath the Alaskan ice, waiting to be revealed. The government knows. They've known all along. The Aurora Project wasn't about clean energy. It was about something far more sinister, a silent pact made in the cold darkness, the price of which we can only begin to imagine. The pyramid is still there, I know it. Generating its alien energy, its reptilian masters pulling the strings, and the world remains blissfully unaware of the darkness hidden in the heart of the last frontier. Sometimes, on clear nights, when the northern lights dance across the sky, I wonder if they are somehow connected to the energy of the pyramid. A beautiful lie masking a terrifying truth. And I shiver, not from the cold, but from the chilling certainty that our world is not as ours as we believe. The tall, scaled figures are still there, in the dark, and they are waiting. The energy they generated, it wasn't just power. It felt alive, like a pulse, a heartbeat. And the deeper I went into the pyramid, the stronger that feeling became. It was as if the structure itself was a living entity, and the blue vortex at its heart was its very soul. We were told the benefactors were benevolent, sharing their advanced technology to help humanity. But their eyes. There was no benevolence there. Only a cold, calculating intelligence. They watched us with a detached curiosity, like scientists observing lab rats. The human staff were a mix of brilliant minds and those who seemed less questioning. The higher you went in the hierarchy, the more compliant they seemed, their eyes holding that same unsettling blend of fear and reverence I had seen in the security personnel. It was as if they had been indoctrinated. I remember one of the other engineers, a young woman named Anya. She was bright and inquisitive, full of the same initial enthusiasm I had felt. But after a few months, I noticed a change in her. She became withdrawn, quiet. Her questions stopped. Her eyes held a distant, vacant look. When I tried to talk to her, she would give me short, monosyllabic answers, avoiding eye contact. Then, one day, she was gone. Transferred, they said. But I never believed it. The disappearances became more frequent. Always the ones who asked too many questions, who seemed too resistant to the pervasive atmosphere of control. The silence surrounding their departures was deafening. The green-lit chamber. That image haunts my dreams. The pulsating organic mass, connected to the pyramid by those thick, glowing conduits. Perhaps it's a power source, or something else. And the humans being led, their movements so unnatural, so devoid of will. It looked like they were being processed. The power surge was a turning point. It revealed a glimpse of the chaos beneath the surface, the barely contained alien technology straining at its limits. The benefactors' frantic reaction showed a vulnerability I hadn't seen before, a crack in their carefully constructed facade of control. My escape was fueled by adrenaline and a primal fear. The blizzard was a blessing and a curse, hiding me from pursuit but also threatening to consume me. Every gust of wind felt like the cold breath of those reptilian beings. Every shadow seemed to hold their elongated forms. The debriefing. It was chillingly efficient. They knew everything. My background, my skills, my fears. They painted a picture of a stressed mind, a descent into paranoia. The medication they offered felt like a way to silence me, to erase the truth I had witnessed. The new identity was an attempt to bury me, to make me disappear as effectively as those who had questioned too much at the Aurora Project. But the truth cannot be buried. It festers, it grows in the darkness. I have tried to live a normal life, but the shadow of the pyramid stretches across my days. The hum of its alien energy still resonates in my memory. I have researched Alaskan folklore, the legends of ancient beings and hidden places. There are whispers, old stories passed down through generations of indigenous people, tales of dark structures in the mountains, of tall, scaled creatures who dwell beneath the ice. Could these be more than just myths? Could they be echoes of a truth the world refuses to acknowledge? The silence from the government is deafening. No investigations, no denials that hold any real conviction. It's as if the Aurora Project never existed, a collective amnesia enforced from the highest levels. But I know it was real. The cold, sterile corridors, the humming machinery, the golden eyes that held an ancient, alien wisdom. And the green-lit chamber, the pulsating mass, the humans walking in a trance. Sometimes, I catch myself looking at people, wondering if they know. If they can sense the subtle shift in the world's energy, the silent influence emanating from that hidden pyramid. Are we all just unwitting participants in some grand, terrifying experiment? The thought keeps me awake at night. The image of the pyramid, stark against the Alaskan snow, a monument to a secret that could shatter our understanding of reality. And the tall, scaled beings within, patiently waiting, their motives still shrouded in an alien darkness. I have considered going back. Driven by a desperate need for confirmation, for proof that I am not insane. But the fear, it's a physical weight, pressing down on me, reminding me of the power they wield, the resources they command. And the fate of those who disappeared. Perhaps one day, the truth will emerge. Perhaps someone else will stumble upon the Aurora Project, will see what I saw. Until then, I remain a prisoner of my memories, haunted by the darkness hidden beneath the Alaskan ice, a darkness powered by alien technology and overseen by beings who are far more than just benefactors. They are something else entirely. Something ancient. Something predatory. And the world remains asleep, unaware of the silent invasion that has already begun. The energy flows, the pyramid hums, and the tall, scaled figures continue their work, hidden from the light, in the cold, unforgiving heart of Alaska. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering. The amount of energy being generated could have powered entire continents. Yet, it was all being siphoned off, directed through those massive conduits into the earth. Where was it going? What was it being used for? These were questions that gnawed at me constantly. The security around the pyramid was intense, but it was also strange. It wasn't just about keeping outsiders away. It felt like it was designed to keep us in. The guards, many of whom were ex-military, were always watchful, their eyes constantly scanning. There were checkpoints at every level, biometric scanners, and a pervasive sense of surveillance. Communication with the outside world was strictly controlled. Any letters or packages were thoroughly vetted. Phone calls were short and monitored. The internet was a heavily filtered intranet, with access only to work-related materials. We were effectively isolated, living in a bubble of secrecy and alien technology. The food in the mess hall was bland and processed. The dormitories were sterile and impersonal. There was no sense of community, only a shared awareness of the unusual circumstances we were all in. Conversations were hushed, filled with unspoken questions and anxieties. I remember trying to talk to one of the older scientists, a seasoned physicist named Dr. Albright. He had been there for years, one of the original members of the project. I asked him about the benefactors, about the energy source. His eyes clouded over, and he simply shook his head. "Best not to ask, son," he mumbled, before walking away. His silence spoke volumes. The lower levels of the pyramid were a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, filled with humming machinery and strange, glowing crystals. The air grew thicker, the energy more intense the deeper we went. There were areas that were completely off-limits, guarded by both human security and the benefactors themselves. These were the places that held the deepest secrets, the answers to the questions that haunted us. The green light in that central chamber. It wasn't a natural light. It pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, and it cast long, distorted shadows. The organic mass at its center seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting slowly. It was alien, utterly unlike anything I had ever seen. And the humans. Their eyes were vacant, their movements robotic. They seemed to be under some kind of influence, their wills suppressed. They were led by the benefactors, their bodies moving in unison, performing tasks that were incomprehensible to me. It was like watching a silent, terrifying ritual. The power surge. I still don't know what caused it. One moment everything was normal, the next the entire complex was plunged into chaos. The blue vortex flared, throwing off sparks of raw energy. The machinery sputtered and died. The alarms screamed. In the confusion, I saw the benefactors' true nature. Stripped of their calm, detached demeanor, they moved with a primal urgency, their reptilian features contorted in what I could only interpret as fear. They barked orders in their guttural language, their golden eyes wide with alarm. They were not the benevolent overseers they pretended to be. They were something else, something vulnerable. My escape through the ventilation shaft was a desperate gamble. The cold was brutal, the darkness absolute. I could hear the distant sounds of pursuit, the heavy footfalls of the security personnel, the chilling clicks and hisses of the benefactors. I kept moving, driven by the primal instinct to survive, the images of the green-lit chamber fueling my terror. Reaching the surface was like emerging into another world. The blizzard was a white wall, isolating me from the dark secrets buried beneath the ice. But the cold couldn't penetrate the fear that had taken root in my soul. The indifference of the authorities, the smooth, practiced lies of the men in dark suits. It all confirmed my deepest fears. The government knew. They were complicit. They had made a deal, a pact with these alien beings, and we, the unsuspecting scientists, were just pawns in their game. Now, I live in the shadows, always watching, always waiting. The world goes on, oblivious to the truth hidden in the Alaskan wilderness. But I know it's there. The dark pyramid. The alien energy. The tall, scaled beings. And the silent, terrifying purpose behind it all. Sometimes, I wonder if the aurora borealis is more than just a natural phenomenon. If it's a byproduct of the pyramid's energy, a veil drawn across the sky to conceal the darkness beneath. A beautiful lie, just like the Aurora Project itself. And I wait. For the day the truth will finally surface, for the world to awaken to the chilling reality of what lies.